Welcome to the Parenthood and Relationship Podcast. Today we talk about mom rage. Join me today as I sit down with Sami and have this honest and very open conversation about motherhood, about how our identity changes, and most of all, about how we may find ourselves experiencing these feelings that we never thought we would. Let's normalize, let's validate all of this together, and let's see how we can come out of it the way that Sami did. Not only feeling empowered, but also making a difference for other women who may be experiencing something similar to us. Sami is the mom of two beautiful girls, and she joyfully shares life with everyone she meets. She is on a mission to help mothers have access to tools and resources that they need to make motherhood easier and more fun. She loves being outside and finding ways to enjoy life more with her family. So let's get to meet her. Welcome, Sami. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm well. I'm very glad to
Good.
have you here on the podcast.
Me too. I'm so excited to chat with your community and chat with you and just share. I just love sharing and helping other moms feel like they're not alone. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you as well. I got the chance to be part of your community for a little while, and it was wonderful to see the work that you are doing for mothers out there. And I hope that you'll share that with us. But before we get to that point, I would like to ask you how your motherhood experience started. If you could share how it was like for you so that we can kind of retrace the steps that led you to birth this beautiful
Yeah.
project that you're doing and is so valuable to women out there.
Yeah. Okay. Where to even begin? There's so many beginnings. So before I ever got pregnant, I wanted to learn how to be a mom because growing up, I grew up in I'll just plainly put it, in an abusive home. So that I learned a lot of what I did not want to do. Like a lot of this is not going to happen. I'm not going to do this. Like this is not right. A lot of what I wasn't going to do. But then thinking about becoming a mom, I was like, well, shit, how am I going to be a mom? Like, what do I do? I know what I don't want to do, but like, I don't know anything about the birthing process. I don't know anything about becoming a mom. I don't know anything about them like raising a kid or children and how their psyche develops and behavior and all of that. And I just know that I don't want them to experience anything that I experienced. There were some good times, obviously, kind of growing up too, but that really sparked this like deep dive into education. And this was before I became pregnant, about like a year before. I was like, okay, I'm just going to start learning about birth and just having a healthy pregnancy. And I don't know about everyone, but I know like for me, the only birth experience that I had seen was television. And
Right.
it's not very accurate. And so I'm like, I don't even know what birth is. So I went down this deep rabbit hole of let's learn what birth actually is and how beautiful it can actually be and educating myself on that. And if I am afraid or like scared of something, I deep dive into the education around it to learn as much as possible so then it's not scary. So started with birth because that was step one in becoming a mom,
Hmm.
which then led me right into the postpartum experience. And so I dove deep into how no one prepares for postpartum, how everyone then prepares for birth, but no one prepares for postpartum. And in doing that, also diving into like raising kids and took me down this deep rabbit hole of reparenting and trying to break generational cycles and all of that. And the biggest thing that I remember from my first postpartum, I was very lucky in the sense that I had a beautiful home birth. My postpartum was like exactly how I wanted it. It was slow, like I didn't get out of bed for a couple of days, other to use the bathroom, didn't leave the house for like a week, like took it very slow. Recovery was very important, all of that. And at the same time, it was the first time, and you can research and study and learn how your hormones do this and they do that. And then boom, it happens. And you're just like completely, just almost like thrown to the wind, where you're like, okay, I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't understand like that I would feel like that I would really feel like I miss my old self. And those feelings of just like breastfeeding was really hard. my nipples are flat. So when my daughter would latch on, it was just so incredibly painful that like I just kept telling myself, I just have to feed her one more time. I just have to feed her one more time. And I did that every single day for like, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks. Every single time just crying, like, I just have to feed her one more time. And then it got easier and then it was great. But like some of these other things that you think, oh, well, some people might struggle with this or you might struggle with that. But then when you're in it, it was like a whole new world, like completely whole new world. And so that was interesting, like navigating through being a new mom and trying to figure out like what I like now. And I have this little baby, and then all those fears of like, am I doing it right? Am I like messing her up? Because now I'm crying, like she's seeing me crying. Is this imprinting on her that like I don't want to be her mom, even though she's 5 days old? Like, just all of those thoughts plus the thoughts of like, this is so hard, like I want to just run away and never come back. I had all of those with my first postpartum. And even though we live in a super small town with not a lot of support, I felt really supported. My husband was on board with how I wanted to recover. He read a bunch of the parenting books or birthing books with me and like was on board with that. And my in-laws were with us for the first week and cooked all of our meals, and that was super nice. I didn't even change a diaper. My daughter's first diaper, I didn't change till she was like 2 months old. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was like, it was different the second time around. But the first time around was very like, I felt like people would talk about, oh, the lack of support and there's no support for moms and all this stuff. And I was sitting here feeling like, oh man, I'm like the most supported mom in the world right now. Even with like, we don't have like that traditional village or whatnot. But I like felt pretty good just navigating that hormone change. And then with my second postpartum, another beautiful birth, I tried to prepare. And I want to say this was my hardest one because as I was approaching birth, the more I thought about my sister and me, and I'm the oldest, and I remember feeling replaced, and I remember feeling like she's more bubbly than I am. I'm a little more reserved, so nobody like loves me anymore. And I remember all those feelings. Like I just got transported back to like a little 2 or 3 year old. And I was like, oh my God, my daughter cannot feel this way. Like she can't feel this way. And I also remember thinking during my first postpartum, like even when she was crying and I would get frustrated, but even through the frustration, I always thought like, how could someone yell at their baby? How could someone like be so mad at their baby? How? I couldn't understand it. Like there were some frustrating times where I'd be like, Josh, you have to take her. Like I'm frustrated, but that was it. Like I'm frustrated, please take her. It was not like this explosive energy or like this like scared of I'm going to hurt her. It was just like, I need a break, like take her, please. But that all changed with the second one. And so I had these feelings of like, I don't want her to feel replaced. She's not being replaced. And I also understand now, though, that there's this newborn that like needs me. Like, actual, like, not that the 2 year old doesn't need me, but like this newborn like really, really needs me. And I had a similar immediate postpartum experience. Like, Josh changed the diapers. I started helping like after a week. But like he would be changing the diapers. He did all the cooking. We didn't have our in-laws there that time around. That's when I kind of realized that like what the village, I say in quotes, is, like what that support actually is. Because now that there was a toddler and a new baby, I was just like, how does anyone do this? Like, how could they do this? Josh and I were both struggling really hard, sleep deprived on top of needing to be with a toddler and doing all the toddler things, not being able to rest and recover like the way I had with the first postpartum. And I just had like really this explosive like postpartum rage. I was just calling it like mom rage, but I don't even think that's really fair to say because it really was just a sign of like the lack of support that we were experiencing and that like I was experiencing in this
and sheer depletion, right?
Yes,
So
complete
it's physical,
depletion,
mental,
yeah,
emotional depletion. So yes, a lot of people, there is the term mom rage, but a lot of people are now supporting, and I support it too, that mom rage is not really a fair term to use because it is pinning it on something, let's say hormonal, which then kind of takes away the responsibility of everyone around us and of ourselves to check in with ourselves as well, and to admit that, yes, I am running on fumes and it is natural for me to be rageful. If we are throwing it onto the hormones, then we're not asking for support and we're not looking at what's really happening.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly like how it kind of played out. And I was afraid to say anything at our childcare well visits. Like they always ask you, they don't ask anything about rage though. They just ask you about depression. Like that's it. And anxiety. Like that's it. Are you really worried? No, I wasn't worried. Are you really sad? Can you find happiness? I can still find happiness. I'm not really sad. No, there's not one question on our thing. I don't know how it is over with you and like the postpartum experience there with the checkups and stuff, but our checkups, they ask you these questions and like
In
the
Greece,
questions.
we don't even have checkups.
You don't? Oh,
We
well,
don't.
that's kind of nice actually.
I hear about the checkups in other countries because it's not just
Yeah.
where you live, but no, we have nothing like that actually. And I wonder whether it's helpful because you're saying it's nice. So I definitely want to hear why you think it's
Yeah.
nice. On the other hand, I'm thinking that you're not necessarily going to get always a person that
Yeah.
really cares.
Yeah.
And I understand the worry that some moms may have that, yes, I am worried, but if I share it, for example, or I do have some thoughts, but if I share those thoughts, will they think that I'm at an actual danger? I know my limits, and will they take my baby away? So it may
Yeah.
be a scary experience. I can empathize with that. At the same time, you might have the opportunity to be able to share something, and it's a little bit normalized that you are supposed to need some kind of support, and someone is coming in symbolizing at the very least that at this period of your life, at this season of life in motherhood, you may be experiencing these things. It's actually valid, and this is why I'm asking you, whereas we don't get that here. So I'm wondering why you said
Yeah.
it's nice that we
That you don't have it?
this.
Um, I think maybe I'm romanticizing that maybe you have more of a family support system in place, where you can just be completely honest with like an auntie or a grandma or a mom and be like, I'm feeling this way. And they say, oh my God, I did too. Sit back, let me go get you some bone broth and rub your feet while your sister takes the baby for a minute. You know, just more of that support system, I guess, where going into like the doctor, like first we only have like our 6 week for moms, like that 6 week visit to like see if your uterus is shrunk back down to the correct size. And that's it. And they're like, cool, you're good to go. And that's it. But at the well baby visits, they'll like ask the mom questions, but they don't ask anything about rage. And even if they did, like, honestly, I'd probably lie about it because you hear in the news all of these other scary situations where your kids get taken away from you. And, like, I have this rage. I also know I'm not going to actually kill her. Like, I don't feel like I am going to actually hurt her. But I don't like the explosiveness. Like, I don't like that I can't handle that she's hitting her sister because I'm not giving her attention. And now I'm mad at her when it's really not her fault. It's not the baby's fault. Like, it's just all of us are learning how to cope. And then I think for me with the visits, I wouldn't want to say that because then I'm a mom who can't handle it. And now I'm putting this pressure that I should be able to. There's lots of people who have more than one kid and that handle it. But I didn't have anyone to talk to about that I felt safe enough to talk to. So I think that's why I'm like, oh, maybe that's a good thing that you don't have like this person in a white coat, like giving you all the answers, even though I don't think they have all the answers anyways.
Yeah, because it
But,
feels more like an interrogation, and I'm here to check if you are a fit mother rather than I'm here to support you. So then that goes to a whole broader conversation about, are they educated enough? What is their purpose when they are hired and they're given this job description? What exactly is the point? I mean, what's behind the scenes? And are we educating moms on what to expect from this? Because even if you go into a therapy session the first time, you're either going to sign a disclaimer or at the very least you're going to be told how everything you say is confidential
Hmm.
unless, and there are three reasons why, and one
Yeah.
of them being if you're going to harm yourself or if you're going to harm others,
So,
I'm going to have to
yeah.
protect you and others, and so this is
Yeah.
where it's broken. That's an example. You're told very
Hmm.
explicitly what my
Hmm.
purpose is and what you can expect of me as your therapist, not just me
Hmm.
what to expect of you, like I want you to be on time and do all these
Yeah.
things. And so I'm wondering, is there that kind of explicit expectation of you can share these things with me and you can expect support unless
Hmm.
I understand that you are harming your baby, or and then what
Yeah.
happens as well, or I understand that there may be worry that you might harm your baby and what happens then. Because if
Hmm.
there isn't this explicit
Hmm.
explanation and we hear these stories on the news about kids being taken away from the
Yeah.
mother because she's not fit, then we don't know how much we
Yeah.
can share. And so, how helpful is
Yeah.
it that this person is
Yeah.
coming in? It's actually more
Yeah.
stressful. I
It's
have to
more,
put
it
a
is.
facade on because otherwise I'll be
Yeah.
deemed as unfit.
Exactly. And like, who's to say if that one unfit mom whose baby was taken away could have been fit if she had the support? Like, is it
Exactly.
actually nutritional depletion? Is it mental depletion? Is it all of the above? Is it that she's expected and putting these expectations on herself? Like, there's none of that explanation. It's just she was unfit, baby's gone, or kids are gone, and like, and that really got me thinking. Actually, like, perfect segue, my mom was a single mom for many years when my parents got divorced, like right as all like the abuse was happening too. And I had to watch how resourceful she had to be in order to provide for us and not provide for herself. Like, we'd go to restaurants where kids eat free, and she wouldn't buy anything for herself because she didn't have the money to buy herself food. And I was old enough to pick up on these cues, and so like I would only eat half my food so that she could eat. Like, so then there was some of that added, I guess, stressors possibly on growing up. But I saw how hard she had to work and how she was essentially fighting a divorce against a police officer and a DA, and they know the system, they know the court system, and she was a stay-at-home mom that like had to go and find a job to show that she could have her kids. And so it was like it was a real big mess for like 13 years. I think their divorce went on for.
That's
But
a lot. I'm sorry you had
oh
to
yeah, it was.
experience that as a child.
Thank you. But again, it taught me a lot of what I don't want. So there were some like little gold nuggets that I guess came out of it. And maybe that all is part of what has led me here, because she sticks out in my head of like, if she had support, how could things have been different? If she had like even a community, like I'm thinking here, I live in a town of like 3,000 people. So, for what the exact thing I'm experiencing, maybe someone else isn't experiencing exactly the same. But if I had access to a larger community that wasn't just like, let's just say, for example, moms with rage, but like just a motherhood kind of community where I could just be like, this is what I'm feeling. And someone in, like, I don't know, Germany, let's say, is like, I experienced the exact same thing. And I tried this and it didn't help. I tried this, it did. Like, just to have that more mom on mom experience. And so I thought, like, if my mom had something like this, or if she had resources that she could turn to, or if she could learn, like, have different tools and resources to support her through divorce, through being a single parent, through like parenting, through healing herself, because, we all, as an adult now, you can look back and be like, oh, my parents acted that way because they were raised this way. Oh, and they were raised this way because their parents were raised this way. And, you can trace it back as to all for all of our behaviors. So that like really led me into kind of where I am today. But I thought about all of this as I'm sitting there in like my postpartum rage and just explosively losing it and yelling. And I was never going to be a yeller. I was never going to be like a physical person. And I remember my oldest came and like just straight up started smacking the youngest in the face when she was in her bassinet. And I grabbed her and like pushed her. And I didn't think it was that hard, but it was hard enough for her to like fall backwards and hit the fridge. And then she's crying. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm the worst like human in the world. I am now no
Oh,
better than my abusers. And you run through this and I'm like, oh my God, this has to change. And the overwhelm and like the overstimulation was just always up top. Like, it would never subside at all. So any little thing that happened was just like, boom, instant flame to the fire explosions. And it was probably like we were in survival mode. Like my husband, too, he had a pretty difficult time. He didn't have any rage, but just overwhelmed. All of a sudden, we have two kids with two different demands. I'm depleted. None of us are sleeping, like just all the things, no support. And then I have one friend here who's also a mom, and I never wanted to like reach out because she's also a mom. And if I'm feeling like this drowning, she's probably drowning. And how can two drowning people help each other? Like we would just be like drowned together, which maybe it wouldn't have been like that. But in my head, it's like that. So we're not reaching out to anyone. And probably after about 6 months of just suffering from this, like just rage and this depletion, I was like, something has to change. Like it has to change. And that's finally when I looked into myself more. It's so important for me to have my own time and my own space to think and to refill my cup so that I can show up as the mom I want to be. Because I can see it. I can see being the fun mom I want to be. I can see the compassionate mom, the loving mom. Like I can see all of that. And I can also see that I'm so depleted that there's no other way I can react because there's no room for like that compassion. So I need to figure out how to make that room. And so I went on a little journey. Luckily, it was fast. Within a month, it wasn't completely gone. You know, I'd still raise my voice sometimes, but that like violent action of the explosion of the yelling or grabbing her to move her, all of that stopped within a month. And it was simple things, just me taking time for myself, by myself when my husband got off of work, scheduling in just an hour to do my own thing, to be with myself, to journal, to meditate, to process, to like get to the root cause of why I'm reacting in an angry way versus why it's not anxiety, why it's not sadness, why is it rage, and kind of realizing that I then hadn't healed some of my own childhood traumas. Not even just from like the abuse itself, like that I had healed. It wasn't really that. It was more so me being the oldest and having a new sibling. And like I could see that then all bubbling out and me getting mad at my oldest because I used to get in trouble, you know, and starting to pull all those pieces together to actually heal. But I needed that space to do that and some tools to like replenish myself so I didn't act out. And in doing that, I was like, oh my God, no wonder people can't heal and find the time and the space, because if we're constantly living in the same kind of cycle, it's incredibly hard to break if you can't put time in there to break the cycle. But we're then expected a lot of the time that, oh, well, you figured out that you're yelling and you're an overwhelmed mom, fix it, without actually giving you the tools. Take a breath. Yes. Like that doesn't work all the time. When you're in it, when you have snapping rage, taking a breath that's not going to happen. You're so, you know.
Yeah, count 10.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, because it does work if you're not in that, if you're not so depleted that.
If
so
you're not
anyways,
so depleted,
yes.
And if you've trained your brain in order to be able to then use this technique at the time where you're exacerbated, because that's what we don't do. And this is what we have a difficulty with as human beings, that to prepare ahead of time for certain things. So for example, when I prescribe meditation so that people can do it and they can train their brain, if they're not at the anxious state that they were when they first came in, they won't be doing their meditation. And I try to explain that you are not going to be able to do deep breathing exercises and actually help yourself in an anxiety or a panic attack if you haven't trained your brain to get into that state quickly and easily, right? And in that same way, we can't tell moms, it's your responsibility. Everything is mom's fault. At the same time, we don't actually give mom the time, the space needed, and take away also the guilt and the shame involved, because we teach mothers that they're supposed to be self-sacrificial. No wonder why moms will deprive themselves of this time. So there are those moms, and I'm so happy that you're mentioning how much of the result you saw and how quickly you saw it. And my understanding is you didn't seek outside professional support in that month, right?
I did not. And mainly because when my parents got divorced when I was in first grade, we were put into therapy. long story short, with some of the abuse that was going on, if I ever told the therapist the truth, I'd get in a lot of trouble. So I just learned to lie to therapists because they talked to my parents because I was a minor. So like, and now I'm coming at it out like I love therapy. I don't have a therapist, but I love the value I see in therapy now. But for a long time, I was like, no, I can only lie to therapists. So I need to find I need to find
So
other
that
ways.
makes sense that you didn't seek it out. And some people will
Yeah.
not seek it out because of the time involved and the travel involved, others because
Yeah.
of
The
financial reasons.
money. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what I like in what you're sharing is that you saw a result very quickly. A month is quick. And
Yeah. It was
without
really good.
that external support necessarily, because external support, if you were more positively attuned to it,
Yeah.
would have helped
It would
even
have.
more, I'm assuming. But
Yeah.
even for those who cannot and do not want to seek out professional support, seeing
Yeah.
how that 1 hour, it seems like a lot, but it's 1 hour of a day to see tremendous results in a month, and how
Yeah.
significant this
Yeah.
is for
Yeah.
ourselves, and yet we don't give it to ourselves. And while I completely understand that there are those moms, the single moms, or moms whose husband will return home so late that the kids are already asleep, and they
Yeah.
won't be able to practically have that half an hour or 1 hour every day to sit with their thoughts, to journal, to contemplate on these things. There are those who could have had it, but they refuse, usually with a
Yeah.
surface reason. So I don't think my husband will be able
Yeah.
to take
He
this,
doesn't know how to
handle it,
feed
because
them. Yeah.
exactly, he's out all day, so he doesn't know how to do it the way they want, and they will whine, and I can't hear them whining. These are things that I have said, and maybe not with the food, but I have said
Yeah.
similar things myself, and I refuse the help, when the underlying reason usually is that I have been taught by society, potentially by my own mother, by generational values that have been passed
Yeah.
down, that I'm not supposed to ask for help if I'm a good
Yeah.
mother. And this is in my
Exactly.
nature. I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be able to handle this. And so we
Yeah.
don't ask for that 1 hour, because in itself, it is subconsciously shameful to ask for that 1 hour to
Yeah.
sit and be with our thoughts, because I should be able to handle it without needing that. I should be joyous in motherhood
Yeah.
without needing that. And I love, love, love that
Yeah.
you are sharing how transformational it was for
Yeah.
you that you took that 1 hour, and how great it was for your kids as well, right? Because we don't want
Yeah.
to do it for ourselves,
Yeah.
but think about the kids. You're doing it
Yeah.
all for the kids, then here is how significant of a difference it can make for them as well.
Well, exactly. And that was like my whole like train of thought. So back when I was before pregnancy and researching and all this stuff, I love mindfulness and I love meditation and I love kind of the seeking out more peace and clarity in your life, and enlightenment is what everyone's calling it, like finding the enlightenment. So when I took that hour, like, yes, I first started with just I'm depleted, I need some time for myself, and I'd sit there and I'd meditate, and I love mindful stuff. So I'd like actively visualize forgiving myself for exploding because I couldn't have done anything else. It couldn't have happened any other way because of how depleted I was. And I'd do some activations of my future self, and I'd process my current self. And in like doing all that, it kind of came full circle to, if I can then show my kids myself healing and myself making myself important. I have two girls. I'm showing them that by me saying, Mama needs to go take Mama time, that I'm giving them permission to be like, I need to take my time, or I'm feeling this way, so I need to take my time, which put me kind of on this parenting trajectory of like, oh, all of this stuff for me is actually showing them how to be an adult and to how to be a mom so they're not depleted. Not to say they'll never be depleted at some point, but just that they'll be able to say, no, you need to take the kids. I need to go and do this for myself so I can come back and show up as a more vibrant, compassionate person. And so then I was like, it's a win-win for everyone. I'm happier. I have more patience. Now I'm not yelling. They're seeing how important it is to take their own time. And like, sometimes they will go, they're 2 and 4 right now, and they will go and play in the playroom by themselves, or they'll like go to the toilet And they'll be like, no, mama, I need some privacy for a little bit. They're not quite to the point where they're saying, I'm frustrated, I'm going to go sit by myself. But I can kind of already see them taking some of their own time. And then a threefer, then my relationship with my husband is better too, because like all of us are much happier. All simply because I'm taking a little bit of time for myself, which I love, by the way, when you and I did our chat when you came on to Gym. And you were talking about like those little pockets of self connection. And I love, like, I've been saying self connection now because I'm like, yes, it's self connection. It's not self care. I mean, sure, it's self care, but like self connection and squeezing in those little pockets. And to your point earlier, when you were talking about the mom, the single mom, or the mom whose husband gets home really late, still being able to find little pockets when the kids are napping. Or my go to, one of the things that also saved me was I go on drives, I go on nap drives and the kids nap or maybe don't nap, but either way, they're safe in their car seat with the snack, and I can drive in silence, listen to a book, podcast, whatever, and just those little pockets. And so I love, like, I just want to tell you that I've been now calling them pockets of self connection from our conversation.
Oh, that's lovely. And that's a nice idea that you're giving us with the driving,
With the
because
driving.
lots of kids will either nap or they'll really enjoy the car drive and they'll be quiet. And that's a time that we can listen to an
Yeah.
audiobook, listen to some music, and just everybody, it's a win-win situation. And
Yeah.
I'm also liking that you're mentioning how it also had an effect on your relationship too.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if I am really struggling, and
Hmm.
on the one hand, I want to do it all because then it will make me feel subconsciously, it's like my drive is to feel like I'm the best
Yes.
mother in the world. And
Yes.
especially like you, if you prepared so much, you want to see that all this preparation meant something, that I'm able to
Mhm.
apply it and do it well and with flow and naturally. But at the same time, I'm going to be very resentful to
Yeah.
my partner who does not seem to be experiencing the same stress,
Yeah.
who does not seem to have this
Yeah.
overload and all of these things running in the background of how he should have been doing certain things.
Yeah.
And we've set up a program and we have the way that things are supposed to go. And they're not necessarily on board with following that
Or they get
program.
really frustrated, like with something really small, and you're like, are you kidding me? You're frustrated that like they asked you for the blue straw instead of the purple straw. Let me tell you what I've done all day. Like, and then you're mad at them because like they're
Exactly.
frustrated.
And then they're also mad because they're thinking that why are you comparing and why are you mentioning all of this, and why
Yeah.
did you give in to all of those crazy demands?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have boundaries. So then it becomes this
Yes.
whole big thing, but of
Oh my
course you're
God,
going to
yes.
be resentful because you're carrying all of this, and what we don't realize is that we don't necessarily need to be carrying this much. We're
Yeah.
living in a time where we are overly educating ourselves, we are
Yes.
overly preparing, and in
Yes.
this preparation, the bad thing is that we are setting up ourselves to feel like we're failing because we create this picture of how, I like the way that
Yeah.
you said it, how I am going to be as a mom. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be a yeller. I am
Yeah.
not going to do those things that were done to me. I am
Yep.
going to be an improved version. I'm going to read all the books and I'm going to prepare. And
Yep.
so I've seen this because when I first started helping mothers, my first wish and my passion was to get expecting moms, first time
Hmm.
expecting moms, and kind of prepare them for matrescence about the hit
Hmm.
that they were going to experience. And I was like,
Yeah.
what would happen if I could lessen the blow?
Hmm.
How much would I be helping these moms enter with a much more positive psychology if they knew that it's not going to be perfect, if they knew that they are going to get anxious and depressed and potentially rageful, that it is
Yeah.
going to be hard, that they're going to lose themselves. But moms didn't want to hear any of that.
Yeah.
And they
Because it's
had
not going to
this,
happen.
exactly, it's not going to happen to me because I am preparing,
Yeah.
right? I am
Yeah.
preparing, Markella. I'm doing all the things and
Yeah.
I've read all the books and I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Of course, it's going to be a breeze for
Yes.
me because here I am. So
Yep.
I didn't want to be the person that burst the bubble. And
Hmm.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that even if I had tried to do it, that the bubble would have burst
Yeah.
because
because we have it in our minds.
Exactly. We have it in our minds. And the reason why we have it in our minds is that culture has led us to believe that it's all in our hands.
Willpower
Yes, it's all willpower.
Yeah.
And the way that we blame mothers. So even before becoming moms ourselves, a lot of us are very critical with other moms.
Yes.
And the way that we blame moms is also very symbolic, and it explains a lot about the way that we then feel how much responsibility do I have as a mom? And if I have this responsibility, what does that mean? I have all the power. And if I have all the power, then I can prepare.
Yeah.
So then what happens is we get into motherhood and it slaps us in the face, and you found yourself in being enraged, and other moms find themselves regretting becoming mothers, for example. And we wonder, like, I really wanted this and I really prepared, so I must have done something wrong. We take on the responsibility that wasn't ours to begin with.
Yes.
Not
Oh my gosh. But I feel like the biggest realization, I think, becoming a mom is just oh, I get it now. And then you want to just apologize to every mom you've ever judged. You're just like, oh yeah, I get it. Oh wow, I get it. I feel like that sums up becoming a new mom.
And so after this month that you're describing, I'm understanding that it became something of a tradition for you to be taking that time for yourself.
Yes. And when things got a little bit better, I then kind of exactly what you had said earlier with the meditation, things got in a good spot. So then, like, I don't need it anymore. So I could do other things, and I then wasn't taking time for myself. And then that is when I noticed that, like, it would creep back up, and I'd be like, oh man, I'm getting overwhelmed at little things that weren't bothering me a little bit ago. And then it just kind of reinforced the hammer on the head, or nail on the hammer, however that thing goes, that I need that time. So so now I do take that time every day. It's just like, it's important. And yeah, sure, there are days maybe that I don't get it because my husband has to work late, or, whatever. But those are now more exceptions to the rule. Now I am a priority. And I love it because then I can show my kids that they are also their own priority too. And, it just comes full circle. But yeah.
You're teaching them, number one, to understand their emotions and the cues that they receive from their bodies, which is very important because we don't listen to our own bodies. And so we don't teach our children to listen to the cues when they are getting to a level where they're overstimulated, where their system is overloaded. And at the same time, you're also teaching them boundaries, healthy boundaries. And boundary isn't you don't do this. A boundary is I need time. I need time for me. And so I am taking that time, and that teaches not only advocating for yourself and respecting yourself and self-care and self-connection, it also shows how I can beautifully set this boundary and how it benefits all of us when I set this boundary.
Oh, yeah. Right? What is it? Happy mom, happy home? Something like that?
Yes.
It's true. So everyone listening needs to take time for themselves every day. Honestly, I feel like even 15 minutes to myself, sometimes just a longer bathroom break, is like enough to just fill the cup up enough for me to come back out and have more compassion. So I don't necessarily think it has to be an hour, though now I'm used to an hour, so I like an hour, but still longer bathroom breaks and just little pockets of solo time.
Longer bathroom breaks where you're allowed to actually close the door and lock it.
Yes. Yeah. Add that to it. Yes. Close the door, lock the door.
But I'm even thinking of moms with newborns that may not even have those 15 minutes. I remember that we talked about that when I came on to GEM, because there are those moments. I definitely had those days. It was a long period of time. It wasn't just days where even those 15 minutes seemed like a luxury.
You couldn't,
And so in that case is where you find ways and things that give you a reminder of that breath you used to take before children. And so one example that I usually give is that scented candles or something like this, just waking up in the morning and spending those 2 seconds lighting the candle is symbolic of I did something that right now would have seemed pointless in this survival state that I'm in, but I am taking those 2 seconds to do it for myself, because I know that as I pass by with my baby it's going to remind me of taking it a little bit slower and
Yes.
taking in the scent, for example, in this case. It could be something else for someone else, but even that can
Yeah.
start the process until I'm able to take
Yes.
10, 15, 30 minutes,
Oh,
60.
yes. Oh my gosh, that just reminds me. There were so many times that I would put my youngest down for a nap and I fed her to sleep. And so as she's breastfeeding, I'm laying down on the bed next to her. It was quiet enough for me to like put myself somewhere else. I love daydreaming, and this worked like a charm. All of a sudden, I am in a little small town in Italy, cobblestone streets, the open air restaurants, looking at the mountains and the wildflowers and feeling the breeze on my face and the sun hitting me. And I was there, even though I was actually in the bedroom beating my baby to sleep. In a calm moment, I would meditate on my like safe space and I'd be like, how does it feel in my body? Where does it feel in my body? It feels so good. And then if it were a color, what color would it be? And so let's say it's like sunset orange. And now like I'm in this like heightened state where I need to calm down. I'd just be like, and I just like picture that like sunset orange like filling my body, and all of a sudden I'm back on the beach with the sun or like whatever the safe place is, and like literally could just feel my body relax. And oh, I did that so many times when my husband was at work, and I started to give myself more permission to have time for myself. Just that breath that can bring you back to like a peaceful place, and that smell of the candle, and yes, all of those little things. I love that.
Oh, thank you for sharing those
Oh
techniques
yeah.
that you're using.
Maybe they'll be helpful for someone listening. I love mindfulness. I know that technically that takes you out of the present moment, but also it's a tool so that you don't overreact and you can be calm and you can be safe and then you can come back to the present.
Yeah. Well, it takes you out of the present situation, but it puts you within your emotions, right?
Yeah,
So, in that sense, it does anchor you into the present because you're focusing on the
that's true.
emotions.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you for that. Yes.
And so, at which point did you create GEM, and tell us what it
Oh,
stands for and what this is?
yes.
At what point in your motherhood journey does this actualize?
Yes. Okay. So as I was coming out of survival mode and I could actually think a little bit clearer and thinking about, again, going back to my mom, if she had support and resources, how would things be different? I was thinking we have support groups for very specific things. You can go to a support group if your child has ADHD. You can go to a support group if you're suffering from postpartum anxiety. You have a support group if you suffered a loss. All these separate places that you can be a part of, and they're great resources. And I was like, why can't they like all be together? Why can't we have one space where our entire motherhood journey, our matrescence journey could be there, and we can learn from each other and we can talk to each other and we can weave and oscillate in and out of whatever season we're in, because maybe right now I have postpartum rage, but next week I won't. But now I'm dealing with a child behavioral issue of some sort. And how cool would it be to just have a bunch of moms and a bunch of professionals all in one space? So I started mulling that over. We can't be perfect. We have these unattainable like goals and expectations we set for ourselves, and we sit here and think, if I don't do this the way the books say, that my kid's going to be screwed up for the rest of its life. 1 to 3 is the most prime age for brain. Oh no, wait, now it's 1 to 7, but 1 to 3 is, but now you can go to 7. But if you don't do these things within the first 7 years, like your kid's gonna be messed up forever.
No, yeah, there's no
And
repair.
yeah, and I'm sitting there thinking like, what, like, how is there no repair? Like, first, messing up is super cool because now with me messing up, I could be like, oh, I'm practicing my repair muscle, which shows my kids then how to repair when they grow. And also, looking at myself, if that were the case, I should be, I don't know, living a terrible, horrible life right now. But I don't. I have the most beautiful life. I love my life. And so that logic doesn't make sense because of what I faced growing up would indicate that there's no repair. And like the body's constantly repairing itself. Like we're always like shedding cells and growing new cells. And like, so not like that, like wasn't really making sense. But so many moms, including myself, because I read all those books and I was like, my kid's not going to have the same experience. I'm going to learn how the brain develops. I'm going to learn how they take this and they think about it like this. And like, so I dove into that. And then I'm on this walk thinking, well, life is so fluid, and if we make a mistake, we can fix it. Sure, like maybe me yelling at my daughter is imprinting her in some fashion, but what's also really cool is that now I'm learning about how the brain works and how to repair that. As she grows up, I can talk to her about it and be like, had nothing to do with you. Like, you're not a bad person because I yelled at you. I yelled at you because I was depleted and I needed this, and this was all on me. And be able to share with her, like, it wasn't her, and maybe help her not think that she is not good enough or all of these things that we don't want our kids to think, because we're human and we're going to, and if you want to call it mess up, mess up. But at the same time, like, you're not really messing up. We're all just living and we're all just growing with each other. And so I started to get kind of excited about this idea that we can all just keep growing with each other. I could be parenting and I'm learning how to parent as my child is learning how to be a child, and we're doing it together, and we're both going to mess up, and I can apologize and show them how to apologize. And then also whatever circumstances I'm going through, wouldn't it be cool if I had a resource in my back pocket that I could either A, reach out to other moms, or have a program that I could just hop in and have like my pelvic, like do some pelvic floor work, because, now I'm peeing when I'm laughing, and all these things that we go through in motherhood. So that got me thinking, okay, there isn't a perfect mom, but like we can be good enough. Like we are good enough moms. The 80-20 rule. We're just trying. We're going to bed at night being like, yeah, I did the best I could with the circumstances I had. Did I like snap? Yeah, sure, I snapped. Did I apologize? Yeah, I did apologize. We're all good. Tomorrow's another day. So, like, good enough. I'm aiming for good enough mothering. But I really want this to be about the entire journey. Like, the second you become pregnant, you're a mother. Whatever happens to that child, like, biologically speaking, like, you can never go back to never not being pregnant. Like, your body changes, like the matrescence starts. And so I was like, I really want it to be from like that moment, that no matter how you identify with it, like that's a whole nother topic, but just like biologically speaking, matrescence, starts when you get pregnant, and then you become a mom. And then what is it like technically matrescence? Isn't there like an end date? I feel like there's no end date in
There
my
is no
mind.
end date.
Okay, good.
No, no, no.
That's my
There's
thought
not.
of it too. I've heard some people say like matrescence is through the first 7 years or something. I want something that encompasses the entire span and everything that we change. And I was like, oh, matrescence. So that is how GEM, standing for Good Enough Matrescence, got its name. That was my 25-minute explanation for you. Um, but yeah, so I had this idea that it was going to be like this huge resource library and like motherhood co-op that we could oscillate in and out of like whatever we needed. There might be some seasons of our life where we're just like in it and we want a lot of support. And maybe we're happy with how we're doing things. We're choosing to, let's say, co-sleep and feed our baby to sleep, let's say. So we're choosing that. We want to do that, and it's still hard. So maybe you get on and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. And you could just get support, and other people could be like, I'm sending you virtual coffee, or like, me too, I'm so tired, let's be tired together. Or maybe you get on and you're like, what I'm doing is not working. Like, I need support in changing this. I thought I wanted to like co-sleep, but like, just kidding, I don't want to do that anymore. Help. And then there's resources within there, like with the moms that are in there that could like offer support, or with professionals that you can take a course, a class, or work one-on-one with somebody to navigate whatever circumstance you're in, but you're still a part of the same motherhood community. So, okay, now sleep's not an issue anymore, but maybe you can help the new mom with their sleep because they thought they wanted to co-sleep and now they don't, but they feel bad because they think co-sleeping is the natural way, but it's not working for them. So now this mom that's like 5 years past that is like, oh, let me talk to you about my experience because I felt the same way. So that is the idea for GEM. You've got the support with like your peer moms, you've got courses from other professionals, because obviously I don't know everything. So really, I am taking this approach of we're better together and finding resources that just help us through our entire journey. So there it is, summed up.
It's beautiful because it's all encompassing, and I agree. Matrescence doesn't end. There are those who say that matrescence even begins from the minute that you think of conceiving.
I love that.
Because there are so many women out there who have a really hard time conceiving, and maybe they don't
I could see that, yeah.
conceive.
I love
But
that.
in their
Yeah.
minds, there is that expectation and that deep yearning for a baby. And so even in that way, matrescence does
Yes.
begin, and you have to deal with the loss of the baby that was never had.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the empty nest syndrome that we talk about, that also
Yeah.
is part of matrescence. We are dealing with the part of motherhood where all of a sudden that identity, the new identity that was
Yeah.
formed, is now again changing,
Yeah.
because now we are still mothers and we still care deeply about our children, but they
Yeah.
are no longer part of our nest. And then we have to
Yeah.
redefine again who we are
Yeah.
and how we want to be within that.
Yeah.
And that's why one thing that I really like about Matrescence is that it says how we grow together and
Yeah.
we mess up together. My child messes up, I mess up. In that same way, every time each child goes through a different phase, developmental phase, it's kind of like Matrescence's developmental
Yes.
phases as well in
Yeah.
motherhood, because we are now
100%.
trying to navigate that new phase. And it's not just with the
Yes.
first child. Now if you're going into your second child is going into toddlerhood, now it's
Yeah.
you also learning how to handle a toddler, which theoretically you already
Yes.
know, but now it's handling a
But it's a
toddler
different
with
one.
an older child or with a
Yes.
second toddler. And so every
Yes.
time we are going through stages, and so having that community where we understand that this is part of the process and we can bring things. And what I like the
Yeah.
most is the understanding that there's no judgment, that
Yeah.
you are creating a safe space for women to approach one another. Because, for
Yeah.
instance, there are those moments, there are those moms that will share with me that, you know what, yes, I chose to breastfeed. And now, for example, I'm feeling like it
Yeah.
hurts too much and I don't want to
Don't
go
want
through
to.
with it, and
Yeah.
they feel like they can't express that. Or something that I also get a lot, people will not allow you to quote unquote complain, or they think of it as
Yeah.
nagging if you say that, oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm having such a hard time with breastfeeding. And the
They're like,
answer
well,
that
why'd
you'll
you
get
do
is,
it?
so why do you do it? Why don't you stop? You
Yeah.
decided, you made this difficult for
Yeah.
yourself. And so you
Yeah.
get this thing where it's like, oh, I don't have permission because I made
Yeah.
this choice. I don't have permission to say how hard it is. And so a
Yeah.
community like yours gives the space to say, I'm owning it. I decided
Yeah.
to breastfeed or to co-sleep or not to co-sleep, and I'm having a hard time with it, but I want to stick with it. Guys, help me out. So and
Yeah.
instead of hearing someone say just give up, like
Yeah.
you're bringing this onto yourself, it's all your fault. You
Yeah.
have people there saying, "Cool, what kind
I'm
of
gonna help
support do
you.
you need in this?"
Yeah. Oh, yes. I love that. It's so true.
So, where can moms find this beautiful community that you've built?
Yes, they can find us on Instagram at Good Enough Matrescence, and our website is goodenoughmatrescence.com.
Perfect. Goodenoughmatrescence.com and
Yeah.
Good Enough Matrescence on Instagram.
Yeah.
Everyone should
Yes.
give you a follow. And I will have all the links in the show notes and anything else that you
Yeah.
might want to share so that everybody can
Yeah.
get to it.
And I was gonna say too, if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, I can like relate. I feel like not a lot of people talk about the rage. I feel like postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression like are talked about a lot. The rage is still a little bit more hidden. I don't find it spoken. I feel like it's starting to come out a little bit more, but it's not super spoken about. So if anyone that's listening is like, I feel that, or like I've had those thoughts, or like I'm explosive and it kind of scares me, you can reach out to me in the DMs too, or like send me an email and I could help talk, listen. So obviously you can join the community too, but if if someone's just like, yeah, like me too, feel free to reach out to me.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I hope they take you up on your offer. I think you're right. We are starting to talk about motherhood rage, but I don't know that we're talking about it in the most compassionate way just yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're very well informed. So I love that this episode will be a little bit of an introduction to postpartum
Yeah.
rage. You've done an amazing job offering a way where we can feel compassion for ourselves if we are experiencing it. What's really important is to feel like other people have experienced this and
Yeah.
they've come through it, and there's nothing shameful about it. And there's Sami, who can talk about it publicly and share her name. And not only did she get through it, but she's helping other moms as well.
Yeah.
And so this is very inspiring. I think you're generously sharing, you're honestly sharing this experience is healing in itself for anyone who is listening. So thank you so much from the bottom of my
you.
heart for sharing so openly.
Yeah. Thank you. I love sharing. If it helps even like just one person, I think it's worth it. So thank you for letting me share.
I think you are helping way more than one person, Sami. So thank you for the great work that you do. And thank you very much for coming on to the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming out of this conversation, I feel like we tackled a lot of very important issues, but most of all, we talked about mom rage, something that isn't often discussed. And even though we are referring to it as mom rage, I think it's super important that what we did was dispel what this is all about. I hope that if you or a loved one is experiencing rage in this season of your motherhood or their motherhood journey, that you are now able to understand where it may be stemming from, that you're able to take away the shame that's involved in it, and that you can understand that it's not just the hormones. It is not just something she will get over, but it is a lot of things that are piling up together. It is the lack of sleep. It is the lack of support. It is the lack of allegiance. It is the lack of the village, the lack of time to self-connect that is leading to this rage, and not some kind of instability, and not something that she should just look into and fix herself, but something that we need to be supporting mothers with, something that we need to know is a collective experience rather than an individual one. If you're interested in diving in deeper into this topic, let me know and we can discuss it further. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to share it. Post it on your social media. You never know who may be watching and who may really benefit from this. All my details, as well as all of Sami's details, are in the show notes and in the description of this episode. And I look forward to seeing you here again next Sunday. Thank you for spending time with us today on the Parenthood and Relationship Podcast. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.